guys, it's Michael. Hope y'all are having a great Sunday. So one of the weird things that we've obviously been doing is, we've been doing church online. And as much as I miss y'all, I gotta say one of my favorite things about church online is that, you get to wear whatever you want.
Michael, what are you wearing?
What? It's comfortable. Not only that, but with social distancing, I can be as expressive during worship as I want. 6 feet, your fault. But my favorite part is that I can worship wherever, whenever I want.
Michael, what are you doing?
I'm at church. I encourage you to continue worshiping with us every Sunday with your family. Make it a priority every week. So my family and I, we love hiking, but mainly we love it because of the anticipation of reaching the top. You know, it's such an awesome feeling of getting to the top and getting to look out at that crazy awesome view that's right in front of you. But before you get to the top, you gotta work your way there. There's trees to duck under, there's hills to climb up, there's water to cross.
Hang on, Hal, let me help you, baby.
Don't get in the water, Hallie.
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh.
Hallie.
It's like literally the opposite of what we were trying to do. All right, Joshua. Oh my gosh.
Hallie, wait.
But when you arrive at that peak and get to experience the incredible view and the beauty of that moment, it is an amazing thing. I will say our kids love it because they know that when we get to the top, they get to eat snacks. So for us, hiking is more than just getting a little exercise. It's about the anticipation of getting to the peak, of getting to the top. And when you get there, man, is it awesome. Speaking of peaks, I want us to talk about an event that was, in a way, the peak of human history. Today is a pretty significant day in the church calendar. Today is what we refer to as Palm Sunday. So Palm Sunday is the Sunday before Easter, when we remember when Jesus came into Jerusalem and basically proclaimed himself as king. But this wasn't some political statement. This was way more than that. Jesus was laying claim over all people everywhere for all of human history, but he would do it on the back of a donkey. So I want to set the stage for you. So Jesus and his disciples were wrapping up this really long road trip, and their final destination was Jerusalem, the holy city. And so Jesus asked his disciples to find him a donkey to ride into the city on. Now, this was in stark contrast to, say, a horse, which would have revealed him to be a conquering warrior. Instead, he decided to ride in on a donkey, which was a symbol of peace. And by coming in peace, Jesus was extending grace rather than judgment on the city. And while the Bible does say that Jesus will return one day as a conquering king riding in on a war horse, on this day, he would ride in as a humble servant. And so Jesus rides down the road coming toward the city. And as he does, a massive crowd lines the road, waving palm branches high in the air. I mean, these people, they had heard about what Jesus had done. They heard about him and all the miracles that he had performed. They heard about his reputation, and they were excited that this could be the one who was prophesied about, who would come and rescue them and save them and rule as their king. And so they start to lay their cloaks down on the road, and they start singing, "Praise the King who comes in the name of the Lord." And they basically give Jesus the welcoming party fit for a king. And while everybody seems to be excited about this, there is one group that isn't excited about Jesus. In Luke chapter 19, verse 39, it says this: "Some of the Pharisees from the crowd told him, 'Teacher, rebuke your disciples.' He answered, 'I tell you, if they were to keep silent, the stones would cry out.'" What he's saying to the Pharisees is, you don't understand. You may not see me as the one true king, but that's exactly who I am. I mean, can you imagine this scene taking place? Jesus rides in, making this grand entrance. He might as well have been staring death face to face as he proclaims himself to be king. I mean, to Pronounce yourself not just as king of a nation, but to proclaim yourself as king of everybody, everywhere. I mean, to the religious leaders, that was an egregious, heinous act, punishable by death. And that Friday, that's exactly what would happen. And the same people that were cheering for and praising Jesus on the road would be the same ones to vote for his execution by death on a cross. A brutal, severe death. It's amazing that that cross, once a symbol of death and sorrow, would become a symbol of life and freedom. So why does this matter to us? Well, it matters because of this. When I make Jesus my king, he gets all of me. Not part of me, not most of me, all of me. When Jesus rode into Jerusalem that day, the Pharisees, they felt threatened by Jesus and his kingship. They didn't want to relinquish control over their authority. They liked being in charge. And while it's easy for us to sometimes create a distance between us and the Pharisees, I think it's important for us to see how often we're similar to the Pharisees. Are we willing to relinquish control? Are we willing to let Jesus be in charge of us? Over our wants, over our desires, over our relationships, our future? Are we willing to let him be in charge of all that? I remember when I was in middle and high school, how much I loved being a part of our youth group. I mean, I had a lot of friends, I loved our leaders, we had a lot of fun. And I can remember how I would act one way with my friends at youth group and a totally different way with my friends at school. You see, I was really good at playing the part. I would become whoever I needed to in order to make the people around me like me. And even though I knew and loved Jesus, I wasn't really willing to give him all of me. You see, I liked being in control. I liked being in charge of me. And if that meant that I needed to say certain things or do certain things that weren't glorifying to God just to make people like me, well, then I would do it. And I would put what others thought of me above what God wanted of me. In other words, I wanted to make myself king rather than make God king of my life. Eventually, I found out that, well, Jesus is a much better king than me. Does that sound familiar? If it does, I challenge you to ask yourself the question, have I given Jesus all of me? Where are the parts in your life where you've been trying to keep Jesus out of? Would your friends at school know that you love Jesus? Or is that part of you just reserved for your friends at church? Would your social media tell people that you love Jesus? Or would it tell them that you love the world? When we make Jesus our king, he gets all of us. And the funny thing is when we do that, life actually starts to make sense. Jesus said, if they keep silent, the stones will cry out. Can you imagine that? This rock crying out, Jesus is king. It doesn't really make sense, but if you think about it, it makes complete sense what Jesus is saying. We know that the world is longing for someone to come and to rescue us. The world is longing for a king to come and make things right. We long for someone to come and make us right. And when we put Jesus on his throne and make him the king of our lives, then the world is made right. Maybe not right in front of our eyes, but in our hearts, life makes sense. So I challenge you today, make Jesus your king by giving him all of you, even the parts that you're afraid to give him. Maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your social media, maybe it's your doubts. Maybe you're scared that if he sees what's going on in that head of yours, then he's not going to like what he sees. But I challenge you to do that. I dare you to do that. And trust me from experience, it's worth it. And don't forget, the story doesn't end there. We may have reached the peak in our story, but it's not until next Sunday that we get to see the true beauty of everything. And so for now, give Jesus everything. Make him your king. I challenge you to do that this week. Have a great day.